Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review Long-Term Effects of Suffering by Suicide Boys. After a series of multiple and pretty decent mixtapes and EPs that have done over the years, Suicide Boys released their debut album back in 2018, I Wanna Die in New Orleans, and their first studio full-length album didn't really offer that much compared to what we mainly knew from Suicide Boys up until this point. It was a bit more of the same, and in some instances not even with that much of an aggression or a dark attitude, which would be much more apparent with previous works from them. It was a bit of a more safe direction, it was a bit more of the same, but without that much of a punch to it. And I would say that this is pretty much the exact same case with this album as well. If you are already familiar with the sound of Suicide Boys, you pretty much know what to expect getting into this. It's just more of the same. It is the cloud rap and emo rap direction with some dark atmospheres, trap instrumentals and a few Memphis rap samples and elements here and there. And at this point, Suicide Boys are basically a one-trick pony. There is this one thing that they know really well how to do and they just keep doing it, which by itself I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a bad thing because there is still some quality content in this project, and once again the production is pretty good. This is something that I've got to give to Suicide Boys. Many of the projects I've heard from them actually have a pretty good sound. Even if many of their stuff sound kinda generic, I really think that the instrumentals is definitely one of the most enjoyable parts about this project and many other projects that they've done in the past. The thing with this album though is that it never exceeds creating something that would feel even just slightly refreshing. There were still though some tracks that I liked, especially when it comes to those that feel more of like trap bangers, those that have a bit of a more aggressive tone to them. It might feel slightly toned down compared to some mixtape and EP works that they've done in the past, but I still think that there is a bit of a quality here. The track Degeneration in the Key of a Minor, I think that it's a pretty okay and decent introduction, it starts things nicely, and then we get to the track If Self-Destruction Was an Olympic Event, I'd Be Tonya Harding, which is a very nice and clever title for a song. And this is definitely one of the highlights of this album in my opinion. It is kinda aggressive, somewhat intense, and it has a nice dark atmosphere to it. It really serves as a track that makes Suicide Boys sound like an interesting project. After this point though, it gets toned down a little with tracks like Life is But a Stream and 5 Grand at 8 to 1, which those two tracks go more into a bit more soothing and emo rap direction, which I'm not really a fan. It might have to do with the fact that I haven't really found interesting emo rap projects, but for me tracks like this are not really what I'm looking forward to when I'm listening to a new Suicide Boys project. Thankfully, in the case of those two tracks, I think that what saves them is that they have a good sampling to them and the instrumentals are kinda decent. On the other hand, there are way more forgettable tracks, like for example the track New Profile Pic, which I find it somewhat shocking that this ended up being one of the teaser tracks because for me this is easily one of the weakest moments in the album. It has one of the most bland and uninteresting instrumentals in this project, and yeah, I wasn't really a fan of this track. In my opinion, it gets worse when it comes to tracks like Forget It. This was definitely my least favorite moment in the album, mainly due to the vocals. I don't really like when Suicide Boys end up going to that singing voice direction. The instrumental is pretty bland and the vocals were not really that good in my opinion. Same with the final track, which this one has somewhat of an interesting instrumental and sample to it, but once again the vocals didn't really do it for me. When it comes to some other highlights though, I really enjoyed tracks like We Envy Nothing in the World. I think that was pretty interesting, and also we have the track Bleach, which is definitely the most haunting track in this entire project. I really love the sampling to it, and it's definitely one of those tracks that captures the best this horrorcore feel that Suicide Boys are going for in some occasions. The main highlight for me would have to be the track Avalon, which is another one of the teaser tracks, and in this case it's understandable. This track is my favorite in terms of production. The beat and the bass in this track sound really cool. Definitely one of the highlights when it comes to the entire Suicide catalog, this is a really solid moment. Other than that though, when it comes to this album as a whole, it's pretty much what you would expect. You have some moments that are to the more bugging and dark side, and then you have others that are a bit more toned down, a bit more soothing, which I never cared for all that much in the first place. So when it comes to this project as a whole, I think it's just okay. It doesn't really pull any punches and it's a quite predictable project. You mostly have tracks that do not reach the 3-minute mark, and many of the aspects that you see in previous Suicide projects are also implemented here. In a good way, there's nothing wrong with the execution, but that's all about it. With their second full-length album, it's just another case where they played it safe. Just making an album for the fans, just offering to them what they know to do best. But that's pretty much all about it. I'm going to give Long-Term Effects of Suffering a 6 out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.